Hello, my darlings, and welcome to 24 Days of Advent Adventure. Today is day 6, and we're going back again in time to haunting Christmas tales, and I had to do this one for you. It's called The Woodman's Enigma by Garry Kilworth. 1991 again, when I was 15, 33 years ago. But it's such a fantastically haunting tale, I had to share it with you. Now, the Woodman's Enigma, well, it is quite the puzzle indeed. Colin and his sister Jill are on their way to stay with their Uncle Giles over the Christmas holidays in Rochford, Essex, a small village called Ashingdon. Now they have to go and stay with their uncle because their mother is very ill in hospital and she's going to be having an operation. And their father is out in Saudi Arabia working with a petroleum company and unfortunately cannot get home to be with the children. So they have to make this journey on train, and they get to the train station and their Uncle Giles, isn't there waiting for them. And it's snowing and it's cold and they have to get to Chase Cottage, which is where their uncle lives in Ashingdon. Now, Colin thinks it's rather strange that as they had arranged to meet Uncle Giles at the train station, for him not to be there was very unusual, as Uncle Giles is a very punctual man. Anyway, Colin organises a taxi to take himself and Jill all the way to Chase Cottage, which is out in the middle of nowhere. It has a little spinney near the house, which is full of hawthorns and blackthorns. Not very nice. But there are trees around the cottage. And that will become part of the puzzle. Yes, so they're talking to the taxi driver, and he happens to know their Uncle Giles, as they happen to be very good friends. And he thinks it's very unusual that their uncle has not met them at the train station. So he tells the children to look underneath the welcome mat by the front door and they will find a key there. And he said to use that key to get into the cottage and to wait inside until their uncle returned. And he was going to call by later when his shift had finished, just to make sure that the children and Uncle Giles were okay, because even the taxi driver is a little bit puzzled by what's going on. So anyway, Colin and Jill managed to get inside the cottage and they can't find a light switch, but the light of the fire, it's still bright enough for them to see around inside the cottage. So they decide to go and get warm by the fire. And the fire's starting to go down. And Colin's getting a little bit worried about that. So he suggests to Jill that they start to look for some firewood. And they can't find any in the house, so they had to go out in the cottage. So they've had to go outside into the snow to see if they can find any logs or any wood at all. And they come across a broken branch from a yew tree. And as they can't find any more fuel for the fire, Colin and Jill decide to take the yew branch back to the cottage to burn on the fireplace. And while they're doing this, Colin can feel a presence, and so can Jill, and they're getting more and more worried and panicky. So they take the branch and they rush back to the cottage. And this is when the problems start. Colin and Jill suddenly find that they're no longer alone. But who or what is it that has found them? Why is it suddenly so cold? Oh, it's freezing all of a sudden. What is that unearthly presence? How has it found them? They're all alone in this cottage, and there's no lights, and there's only the glow of the fire. And no Uncle Giles. Where are you, Uncle Giles? Yeah, very spooky indeed. I'll just read you the first little bit. They played a game called Enigmas, riddles which they would normally do on their home computer. Since they were on a train, they had to play against each other, one inventing an unusual situation, the other making intelligent guesses as to how that situation came about. The game was a puzzle, often a murder, which the second player had to solve. I've got one, said Colin. Romeo and Juliet are lying dead on the floor in a pool of liquid. They are surrounded by broken glass. What's happened? His 10-year-old sister, Jill, snorted. That's an old one, Colin. Romeo and Juliet are goldfish. The liquid is water, and the bits of glass are their smashed goldfish bowl. She flicked her blonde ponytail. Think of a new one. Colin, fair-haired and tall for 13 years of age, sighed and stared out of the window at the falling snow. I can't, he said. Not anymore. I've run out of ideas. We really need a computer for a good Enigma. I don't expect Uncle Giles to have one. He's 60-something. The train stopped at Basildon New Town, and the pair of them stared out of the window at the brightly lit streets, full of shoppers and excited children. Christmas decorations were everywhere. In the main square was a giant fir tree covered with coloured lights. They could hear carols being sung over the square speaker system. The train moved on towards Rochford, their destination. In contrast to Basildon, the countryside around was black and forbidding, a sparsely populated area of few lights. They were used to streets full of people, then the noise of the traffic and the hum of the city. They knew that Rochford was in Essex. It was a rural district, and not at all like their home at Finsbury Park in London. As if that wasn't bad enough, their Uncle Giles lived in a place outside Rochford, a small village called Ashingdon, which sounded like the ends of the earth. The train at last pulled into Rochford station. They stepped from the carriage onto a powdery whiteness underfoot and looked around them. It was dark, and the lights along the platform made a weak show against the night. It was so quiet they could hear themselves walking, even though their footsteps were deadened by the snow. 5 o'clock in the evening, and it looks as though everyone's gone to bed, grumbled Colin. Christmas was only 7 days away, and here they were in a strange place with no real celebration to look forward to. Both of them felt pretty miserable, but they knew they had to make the best of an unfortunate time. "Is that Uncle Giles?" said Jill, pointing to a man in a heavy overcoat just near the station exit. "I don't know," replied her brother, gripping their suitcase. "We'd better go and ask." By the time they reached the exit, however, the person had gone. They passed through the ticket barrier and found themselves on a road which sloped down to the town below. Everywhere was soft with new snow. There was no car waiting outside. In fact, the area looked quite deserted. Colin felt responsible for his younger sister, though in truth he knew she was just as capable as he in an emergency. "I'd better phone the cottage. He may have got the times of the trains wrong and still be at home," said Colin. "You look after the suitcase, Jill." He found some coins in his pocket and went to the telephone booth near the taxi stand. Their mother had written their Uncle Giles's number on a slip of paper, and Colin dialed it, only to find that the phone at the other end rang several times without being answered. Just as he left the booth, a taxi arrived. The driver took out a newspaper and began to read it by the light from the courtesy lamp above his rear-view mirror. Colin studied the man's face for a few moments before walking across to the vehicle. The driver wound down his window and Colin spoke to him. "Excuse me, could you tell me how much it costs to go to Chase Cottage, Ashingdon?" "Giles Foster's place?" £3. The taxi driver looked at Colin quizzically. "You want to go there?" Colin shivered, looked at the dark town, then made a sudden decision. There were still fluffs of snow in the air, and it was getting colder. There were ice beards on the window of all the houses. He decided it was best that the two of them got to the cottage as soon as possible. Out in the country the wind seemed harder and sharper than it did in London. "Yes, please," he told the driver. "Me and my sister. She's over there. I'll call her. Jill, come on, we're taking a taxi." And that, my darlings, is where I'll leave you. What will they find when they get to the cottage? Where is Uncle Giles? Why is there no firewood? Has there been a power cut? Because there's no light at all. And when they go to find the wood to keep the fire going, someone or something finds them and follows them home. Ooh, isn't that spooky? Just what you need for Christmas. A haunting Christmas tale. Indeed it is. Well, my darlings, I do so hope you've enjoyed day 6. And if you like what I do, you can always give me a thumbs up. And if you really like what I do, you can always give me a follow and come back for day 7. Because goodness knows what horrible tales I'll have for you tomorrow. Enjoy the season, my darlings, and happy readings, and enjoy whatever it is that you're reading. And drop me a line and let me know what you're reading, because I'm nosy that way. Take care, my loves. See you tomorrow on day 7. Bye-bye.